to We All Serve, the podcast featuring leadership lessons from and conversations with those veterans that have served in the United States Armed Forces. Meet your hosts, Robert Lewis, a proud enlisted veteran that served active duty in the United States Marine Corps. Hoorah! And Shalom Klein, who is privileged to be an officer in the United States Army Reserve. Hoorah! They both agree, we all serve.
Well, Robert, we're back at it. Episode number 7 of We All Serve. How's your week been?
Oh man, it's been a long week, but a great week, and it's always good to end my week with my brother, doing another episode of We All Serve. And what an episode we have for you today! It's another great day, another hot day outside. Last week being the 4th of July weekend, and here we go, man. We're moving along with these episodes. Our guest list is getting longer, and the feedback from our viewers has just been overwhelmingly positive. And I think we're on to something now, man. What do you think?
We are indeed. I actually I didn't have a chance to tell you this before we went live, but I just got a call from somebody in Indiana that heard about the show, and he had a comment about something from our very first guest, Linda Chapalavia. She said in the interview, I'm sure you recall, she said about how her only regret is not staying in longer.
Yeah.
Her only regret is not continuing her service. And we ended up, I was out for a walk early this morning, and I got an email from this individual who I know a little bit.
Right.
And he said, I heard this, ... And I said, hey, listen, if you're up, I'm up. I'll give you a call. Let's talk about it. We ended up talking for a long time. And what's amazing is it's really inspiring, which is exactly what you and I set out to do, was hopefully inspire folks to do a little bit more. Bottom line, we all serve. I'm the Army guy. You're the Marine. And by the way, our guest happens to be in the Army, or was in the Army, I should say.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, listen, yet again, we're proving the leaders who those leaders are. I'm just saying.
As I said before, brother, it's great to always join you, man, for the We All Serve podcast. And you're truly a wonderful guy. You really are, man.
I sense a butt coming along over here.
Except for that one choice you made. And I think we all know what that is. That's joining the Army. But as I say, man, we forgive you. We got your back, man. Just get off of our backs, man. Come on.
You know what? We were just talking. I actually have to head back out to Fort Leonard Wood, where, by the way, I'm sure our guest who we're going to introduce in a moment is going to smile because, as an MP, the MPs, engineers, and the chemos, as we call them, we all serve side by side, and we all train side by side. But I have to go back out there for some training, which is actually led. And I take back everything that I said. It is being led by Marines, and that's it's awesome to serve with our brothers and sisters across the military, because we all serve.
We do, and I'll be honest with you. We poke at each other all the time about which branch we're in. But to be honest, we had a milestone happen in the military yesterday. A female, much like our guest today, who does a lot of things first. Let me say, and she's she may be the second female on the podcast, but she's doing a lot of things first. But we had a young lady who graduated from the Green Beret School, and actually has moved on to become a Green Beret. Now, she wasn't the first one to graduate. A young captain, then Captain Kathleen Wilder, graduated or didn't graduate, but finished the course in 1980. But at that time, much different time, she couldn't finish to go on to graduate and then actually become and train with the Green Berets, although they did give her a badge once that was available. But the young lady now that graduated yesterday will have that opportunity. So, it's kind of like things align in the universe, especially when you have someone who is as fantastic of a planet with all that they do as our guest today.
I have a one-word response for you, Robert.
What's
Hooah.
that? You know what? I'll even say it for her today. Hooah. I won't say it as enthusiastic as you did, but hooah. No, so I, with all that being said, our guest today, Bridget Altenburg, began her career as an engineer officer in the U.S. Army. During her first assignment, she deployed from Hanau, Germany, with 34 soldiers to Bosnia to conduct engineering operations pursuant to and consistent with the Dayton Peace Accords of 1995. She returned to Bosnia the following year and was deployed a third time to Albania to support the air war in Kosovo in 1999. Ms. Altenburg earned her bachelor's in Russian and French from the United States Military Academy at West Point. Wow. Very intelligent. And an MBA from Columbia Business School as well in New York. Ms. Altenburg's 25-plus year career includes experience in the nonprofit and for-profit sectors as well as military service. Ms. Altenburg came to National Able Network from Chicago Cares, where she served as the executive director for almost 3 years. During her tenure at Chicago Cares, she helped revitalize the organization's programs, finances, and the staff. Prior to her work with Chicago Cares, Bridget directed the development, marketing, and communications for the Academy for Urban School Leadership, Chicago's only teacher training and school turnaround organization, which was organized by President Obama as a national model for education reform. Prior to her transition to the nonprofit sector, Bridget worked on the executive staff at Bally Total Fitness to strengthen the company prior to its sale to Harbinger Capital. Bridget Altenburg joined National Able Network in September of 2013 as the COO and was appointed president and CEO in April of 2018. She not only served as a captain in the U.S. Army honorably for 5+ years, but she continued her service by volunteering and has served in many capacities, such as being a founding board member of Illinois Joining Forces and West Point Women, and a member of Senator Tammy Duckworth's nomination board. Also, in 2018, she was featured as one of Crane's Chicago business LGBTQ notable executives. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the president and CEO of the National Able Network, my colleague and friend, Miss Bridget Altenburg.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
You're just nuts, man.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for that really over-the-top welcome. That was very sweet. Thank you.
I mean,
Bridget, that was all you. You did all those things.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, whatever. It's sort of like reading somebody's OER where you're like, really?
Right.
Yeah, but when you know it's true.
With nobody's help. Okay.
Yeah, but it's one thing to say those things, but then to know they're true, that's a whole different story.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Indeed.
Bridget, I get to ask the first question over here because, like I said in our little banter back and forth over there, MPs, engineers, chemos, yep. we all train together over at Fort Leonard Wood, and we get along really, really well. In the Army, I mean, just saying, in the Army. And so, Bridget, we just talked a lot about your experience, and I'm excited to dive in quite a bit deeper over here. But can you tell us, where did you grow up, and what was life like as a young child being Bridget Altenburg?
So like a lot of people who end up serving in the military, I come from a military family. So my dad was drafted in the Vietnam War, came back, used the GI Bill to go to law school. And he's going to kill me for saying this, but his grades weren't great. And so he decided he was having a hard time getting a job. So he's like, I'll just go in the Army for a few years, get some experience. That sounds familiar, right? Get some experience, and that'll help me get a job later on. Well, 30 years later, he retired as a JAG officer. And so I served, I moved around every couple of years, actually started my service in the military, moving from Germany. So I, flew over to go to West Point from Germany because we were stationed over there. So we bounced around all over Kansas, Virginia, different parts of Virginia, Germany, 3 or 4 different tours in Germany. So yeah, we bounced around quite a bit.
Wow, that's the typical military family trail, and for me, what's interesting is you ended up going to some of the most prestigious schools America has to offer. I mean, West Point for one. I just want to know, from your travels through all the different states, all the different places that you lived, what was the biggest motivator for you at that point to end up going to Columbia in New York?
Yeah. So interesting. When I was a senior in high school, I knew I was going to use ROTC or West Point or something to go to college, just because there's 5 of us and not a whole lot of money to go around. So I knew I had to figure out a way to pay for college on my own. But my dad deployed for Desert Storm when I was a senior in high school. And when I saw the way that, we were in Germany, so when the division deploys, there's nobody left. It's not like being part of like Fort Hood or Fort Bragg where division leaves. There's still a lot of people left behind. You're still in an American city. So everyone was gone, and I had classmates who were seniors who were taking care of their younger siblings because mom and dad are both deployed, or they were a single parent and they were deployed. And that really, it really showed me how a community comes together and how the military is more than just a job. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it really is about taking care of each other in a way that you don't see in other industries. And so that's what inspired me to go to West Point. When I got out of the service, I'll be real honest with you. I just wanted to live in a big city and have a good time. So I went to Columbia because I wanted to see what it was like living in a big city, and leaving the military as an LGBT person and wanting to know what it was like to live out and proud and be out of the closet. I think Dartmouth was another option. And I was like, no, I'm just going to go live in New York City for a couple of years. So that's why I chose Columbia.
That's hilarious, because when the Marine recruiter, right, Bridget, when he showed up to my high school, of course, the dress blues had me just bugging.
Yep.
But then I was like, boot camp is in California. I'm not even thinking about boot camp. I'm like, I need to go see California.
Yep.
So I can relate.
It's funny.
Boot camp is a lot of California, right?
Right.
I don't know how the Marines got all the pretty bases and the Army got all the. Well, there's nothing wrong with misery, man. Just it's a real estate. Oops.
So a drop of a choppy connection, but yeah, Fort Leonard Wood is I actually learned to love Fort Leonard Wood. I spent time in Fort Benning, Fort Leonard Wood. There's some great people. It's a warm place, and great training, great stuff over there. So I mean, Bridget, getting a little bit deeper into your military story, and Robert did a great job of introducing sort of your bio and some of your experiences in the military, but you spent time serving overseas. And I'm curious, what was that like? Can you, for some of our listeners, many of our listeners have served, they're looking for inspiration from other service members, but many have not served in the military. Hopefully they're serving in many other ways, by volunteering and contributing to their community and so on. So enlighten us. What was it like to serve overseas, and what are some of your biggest lessons from your military service overall?
Yeah, the first deployment. So I came right out of basic and headed right over to Bosnia. So I didn't really have. I think I had enough time to like get my TA-50 and check in, and I think they made me take some German classes or something. But like I was in and out and overseas over in Bosnia pretty quickly. And I'll tell you, it was a shock. I don't think I knew what to expect, and I think what I learned is that we can really learn to live in just about any environment. Just the resilience of the human spirit, and one of the things I think growing up as an Army rat really taught me was just, hey, look, man, you can get through anything. That's it's 9 months, 10 months, like you could do that standing on your head, just deal with it. But I was really surprised. We were, I was in a GP medium with 10 men who were all my NCOs, all my team leaders and squad leaders. I was the only woman. I was the only one under 30. I had 2 feet on either side of my cot. I changed inside my sleeping bag. And I think it's different now. I think at the time, these sort of long-term deployments were a relatively newer thing. There was a gap between Desert Storm and Bosnia where it was sort of like, look, we're not coming in and shooting a war and then going home. We're going to come and we're going to do this 1-year rotation. And there wasn't really an emphasis on making quality of life choices for service members. It was more just like, suck it up. And so it was a shock, but it taught me a lot of resilience. It taught me to trust my instincts. And it's something that when I look back on it, I feel like it made me a stronger person.
I would have to agree. Even though I didn't know you previously, I know you're strong, and that it speaks to how you carry yourself and how you lead. So I thank you for your leadership and your service, first of all.
I will say that
Yes.
that year, it comes back constantly, and my wife always laughs about it because she's like, "You're going to be sitting on the porch in your 80s, going, I lived in a tent with 10 men." So if nothing else, I got that out of it.
No, you know what? But isn't that what it's about? It's about having those moments after it's like, I'm done, and having those moments to talk about what it was. So, like I said, you're one of the persons. I don't want to just say woman. You're a person who I feel it just leads the way in everything you do. But since we're talking about Shalom and I were talking about the first woman to actually complete the Green Beret training,
Yeah,
and
that's so
actually
cool.
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like after all this time, 1983, then Captain Kathleen, I think her name was Kathleen Wilder.
Yeah.
She did it, but she wasn't. They didn't allow her to actually do it, right? So look how far we've come. I mean, I don't know if that's really how far we come, or wow, look how far we haven't come. But at the same time, to me, I just want to know. Okay, you have so many experiences, Bridget. You've been a first or part of a group of folks that were the first at some things. Now that you've accomplished so much in your career and in your life, how do you always find new ways to be a leader and move the forward path in your life, in your professional career as well as your life? How do you find that?
I think I like to think that it's by letting others lead me, like listening to other people, right? I think about 4 years ago going to the Ranger graduation for the first women to get through Ranger School, Captain Grice and First Lieutenant Haver, and oh my, I'm just getting chills thinking about it. All these troops lined up. Nobody could tell which were the men and which were the women because they all had their heads shaved, and there were about 80 women from West Point, from the classes of 1980 to the class of 2014 that took TDY, took leave, left their homes. I was there with my 5-year-old daughter. And when we figured out who they were, this female voice of one just went, up. And everyone at Fort Benning was like, we've never heard anything that high before. What? And the two of them looked up at us and realized what they had done. That these two women who were not trying to be, somebody for others to follow, just trying to get through the day, just trying to do what they love and become better leaders, just solely focused on being good leaders for their units, and didn't realize how many people they were inspiring as a result. And so I think what I see a lot of in my career, in my path, is finding those people that inspire me. And a lot of them are younger people. I'm finding myself very inspired by this generation today that are saying things that, we probably in my generation recognized that things weren't right, but we didn't have the guts to stand up and say, that's not okay anymore. We're gonna stop this. So I think for me, how I don't feel like I'm leading so much is I'm looking around and seeing people who inspire me and wanting to get behind them, really, more than anything.
I told you she's woke, Shalom.
Bridget, that's a perfect segue. And you just talked about being at Fort Benning and witnessing that. I know that you continue to be involved in many things beyond just your professional life, which I do want to talk about National Able Network. But tell us a little bit about some of your continued involvement in military organizations and anything else that you want to give a shout out to in terms of your volunteerism.
Sure. So it's one of those things. I've been lucky enough to have been involved in a lot of organizations, getting Illinois Joining Forces started up. We have a group called West Point Women that we started, 10, 15 years ago, maybe. Really as a call to action of, when we were at West Point together, we all just tried to be one of the guys, and we didn't really support each other the way we should have, and recognizing that that's not how we should be. We should help each other. So West Point Women was another organization. I was really lucky to have been appointed by President Obama on the Board of Visitors, and that really inspired me, seeing young cadets today, meeting Simone Askew and people, and Mary Tobin, and people that are, really leading the way. And it inspired me to start working with the admissions field force for West Point with Chicago Public Schools, and trying to get more Chicago Public Schools to see West Point as a way to get an education and to serve their country. So I feel like, again, I've been inspired by others to find these different ways to serve my community and in the military community and the veteran community in a lot of different ways.
Amazing.
Correct.
And it's great that you continue to be involved, that you continue to serve in so many different ways. And one of the many ways, and I've been fortunate to witness National Able Network from a distance. I have been involved here in Chicago in beginning really 2009, 2010 in creating a number of different organizations dedicated to business, jobs, entrepreneurship. And I've gotten to know many that have been impacted, as well as many on your team. Actually, I think before perhaps was your team. But Bridget, tell us how that path, everything that you've shared with us over the past half hour or so in the conversation on WeAllServe, how that has all led you to National Able Network and really what you do.
Yeah, I would say, like I think a lot of people, you sort of talked about like why we joined the military, and it's, I don't think anyone's ever like, oh, I love my country, really, that's part of it. Like that is part of it. But sometimes it's just like, hey, I really wanted to go to California, or I have 4 brothers and sisters, and I was sick of sitting in a bunk bed, and I wanted to go. I think what my path has been, I went to business school. I worked in the corporate sector for a while, and I just missed feeling like my job was more than just selling another gym membership. And I missed that piece of feeling like us together are doing something important. When we were in Bosnia, we were building roads and bridges so people could vote for the first time. Like you can't, it's hard to find that kind of passion, that kind of mission. And I was lucky to learn about this organization, Academy for Urban School Leadership, which was a nonprofit. It had a lot of success, and it was in a point where it needed to grow. And so the funders were saying, look, you got all these great educators, you need some business people to get you to the next level. And so I was sort of the first group of business people that came to AUSL to really kind of put those business practices in place. And that's how I got into the nonprofit world, and had a chance to lead another nonprofit that did a volunteer event at National Label Network. And that's how I found out about National Label Network. It's an organization that's so under the radar, people don't know about it, but there's so many organizations like it that don't have the name recognition or, the people doing TED Talks, but are just quietly doing really good work. And so National Label Network, we help people get back to work. So whether you're a veteran or a senior or, somebody who's been laid off, what we do is sit down and try to figure out what are your barriers to employment. In some cases, people just haven't been in job search for a while, so they don't know how job search has changed. They don't know how to get a resume through an applicant tracking system. In other cases, they may be in an industry that isn't growing, and so they need to go back to school and reskill and figure out how to get back into the job market that way. But it's such an inspiring thing, because what's more important than helping people get back to work? I'd say probably education is really up there too. But every day I come to work with a group of people that are passionate about what they do, and I'm really happy to be here and excited to see what happens next.
Wow. And the staff over there, Shalom, and as you may know, are all highly motivated. And the enthusiasm she speaks of them with is real. Some of my colleagues as well. But I can tell you, Shalom, the first time I met Bridget in person, I don't know if she remembers, we had been exchanging emails. And then one day it was just like, come on, she was like, just come see me. So we went to the Starbucks, across the street. It was raining that day, so I didn't have an umbrella, but I had like a pad and a pen. I'm literally running across the street trying to dodge the rain. I'm like, I gotta meet Bridget. And when I tell you, I got in there and I'm like, man, my pad was a little wet. I didn't have a business card. She sat down and just put me at ease, Shalom, like, it's okay. Tell me what's going on. It was the coolest meeting I had. Seriously. But that aside, I want to thank you for that too, Bridget. You're a cool head as well.
Thank you.
But as a leading force, and you are a leading force in Chicago's veterans and business space, best to know that everyone in Chicago, National Able Network is a force, and Bridget is the lead. I'm saying that for a reason, Bridget, but you're also a notable advocate for the LGBTQ community. Okay. And my question to you is, what is your hope in the future for diversity, inclusion, and of course, equality? And how do you think that should look going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been on a bit of a journey myself for the last couple of years as a CEO to figure out, it's one thing when you're a part of an organization and you really value diversity, inclusion, and equity. It's another thing when you're trying to take an organization on a path, on a journey together. So one of the first things I did with my team is I had everyone take an assessment to see where they were in terms of understanding how to be cross-culturally agile. How do we, because they say diverse teams are better than non-diverse teams, and that's actually not true. It's diverse teams managed well are better than non-diverse teams. So if you have a group of managers that don't recognize the beauty of the different people on their team and what they contribute to the mission, you're really doing yourself and your team a disservice. And so we started on this path a couple of years ago, and have really taken the lead on a lot of the equity issues, and I'm really trying to figure out how do we not just improve as an organization, but how do we improve the whole workforce system, right? Job search is such a subjective thing, and it's so easy to put somebody in a no pile without even realizing why you're doing it, right? Like I've had employers that say, well, they're from the South Side, so they're not gonna be able to get to the operations if one of the servers goes out. And I'm just like, you can't make that call. That is not you to make that call.
Right.
But trying to figure out how to not just fix what we do and make our team better, but how do we get the employers to get behind it too, and to recognize the things that they don't see as bias, the things that they don't see as discrimination, as what they are, and to really be wholehearted in moving the needle to make the playing field level, because it's definitely not level. We see this all the time. I mean, the unemployment rate on the South Side of Chicago has never been under 10%. We're talking about 11% unemployment in the country right now. Think about that.
Wow.
South Side unemployment has never been under 10%. And there's a reason for that. The systemic racism that exists in our country that, caused this wealth gap because Black people were left out of the largest expansion of wealth in the history of mankind. And to think that, if we take a couple of diversity classes, that's going to make a difference. It's not. And we have to really figure out how to break down the structural racism that is keeping us from being our best. And it's a hard task, because, we're not talking about just changing, the 120 people that work at National Label Network. We're really talking about changing everything we do in this workforce system so that, the employers we work with are on the same page.
And I will follow that up. I don't know if you've seen this, Bridget, but if you haven't, it's a great watch. 13th on Netflix. For all of our listeners, if you want to know all of the intricate details of how the system has worked to oppress a class of people in this country, it's a great country. We know our country is great, but we also are flawed. 13th will show you in great detail from the inception, even back to slavery and beforehand, how things worked. So, Bridget, brilliant. Yeah. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah. And Bridget, I want to highlight the word national of the organization's name, National Label Network. And it goes without saying that right now, as we're recording this, we're in July of 2020. And, as you just said, unemployment is too high in general, way too high in underserved communities. We all need to dedicate ourselves to these efforts. And I know that your team of professionals, dedicated team of professionals, are working long hours as socially, or as physically, as I like to refer to it, physically distant to maintain, obviously, safety and health. But you are doing this. We are all Chicagoans. We all love Chicago. But your impact is being felt in many states. And can you tell us a little bit about that, and tell us what I don't want, this show is meant to be timeless, but tell us about the impact of your team right now as we're talking.
Take your time, Bridget.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I think late February is when we were, it's interesting because I was in DC the last week of February. I was meeting with congressional staff about, appropriation stuff. And we didn't even banter about COVID. I think we talked about the World Series. I can't remember, but weather probably, it was really hot. Wow. We didn't even banter about it.
What is the World Series? I don't know what you were referring to.
Exactly. It's exactly right. You're exactly right about that. And so what triggered my team's response to this pandemic that we're all living through was one of my directors shot me an email on a Thursday night. I was, flying back from traveling. It was 10 o'clock at night. I saw this email, like, oh God, I'll just respond to that tomorrow. And it was about COVID. And he said, we should really start thinking about how we would respond to that. And I think, again, it goes to the lesson of leaders listening to other people and being willing to listen to other people, that in this case, he knew exactly that we weren't where we wanted to be. And so we spent the next 2 weeks planning for our team to work virtually, making sure that we had always had a pretty good investment in infrastructure. We were in the cloud, but putting all of our training online and making it available to anybody, being able to enroll new people into our program just via online access. Making sure that our coaches had the tools to reach out to their clients and interact with them as soon as we had to shift to virtual. So it's it's been a crazy few months, and I'm incredibly proud of the job that our coaches have done. Particularly, we work with a lot of seniors. A lot of our veterans are in their are getting on in years and are very isolated. 80% of our seniors don't have access to the internet. So the only interaction that they have is that career coach calling them once a week. How you doing? Do you need food? Do you need medicine? What's going on with you? And so it's not just about, the job search and the resume and connecting them to employers. It's just about being human and helping them through this crisis together. So I could not be prouder of what my team has done over the last 3 months, making sure that we're keeping people safe and that we're continuing to serve them even while we're not physically together.
Amazing. So, with everything we are talking about, COVID-19, protesting that has been going on, George Floyd and all the circumstances around how that's changing the world.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about from Bridget's perspective, how are you going to change the world in your future moving forward? Because I already know you've done that up until this point, but if you had a dream and you like to see that dream come true, what would that be?
My dream would be leveling the playing field on employment and making sure everyone had a fair shot at employment, and that these arbitrary barriers that employers hold on to just disintegrate overnight. What's next for me is trying to figure out how to take what we've been inspired by in the last couple of months and turn it into action. It's not enough to turn Juneteenth into a holiday. That's great. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Certainly a lot better than Columbus Day. But it's got to be more than that. It's got to be deliberate actions that are really going to change people's lives for the better, and not just forget about it. It's sort of like Pride Month, right? Like everyone forgets about rainbow flags on July 1st. We can't do that. We can't do that this time, and I'm hopeful that we won't, because my God, there were protests all over the world, and I don't think I ever saw so many people of different races coming together for the first time. And that's what I told my team. I struggled to figure out the right words. And I think as a leader, you have to just be authentic. And when you see what happened to George Floyd, it's hard to have hope.
Yeah.
But when you see how people are coming together and how, people, that I respect that are saying things that I'm just like, I'm so proud of you. You're willing to listen. You're willing to listen for the first time. And that does give me hope. But we can't lose this moment. We can't lose this moment. We have to turn all of this hope and all of this inspiration into action that is going to finally put the original sin that this country was founded on into the history books and leave it behind us forever. That's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of work that isn't about trappings and facades. It's going to be a lot more than that.
Well, Bridget, with folks like you in leadership roles, and I have a feeling the story will continue to be written, and your goals will certainly become closer to fruition. Whether we can get to 100%, that is certainly an aspirational goal, but it's one that we all can commit to.
Yes.
Everybody listening, and certainly everybody out there should commit to creating a more inclusive, a more accepting, and again, it really goes to what this show is all about. We all serve, and it is about serving. If everybody can commit to that same service, like our guest, the amazing Bridget Altenburg, then this world would be a much better place. Bridget, thank you so much for joining us. Can you share the website for the National Able Network? Because I know that your work is so timely and so critical for so many that are tuning in.
Sure. It's just nationalable.org, nationalable.org. You can connect to a career coach. You can take all of our training is now online. It's all free. But if you just haven't been in job search in a while and you're like, I don't know how to make a resume, or whatever it is you need related to job search, all of that content is on there for free, and we hope that you'll take advantage of it.
Wow. And I just want to say to you, Bridget, my friend, thank you for mentioning the South Side. It is so rare that you hear people who are really out here doing the work on the front lines mention those areas. So, it's usually a cliche when they do, but you knew the statistics. And so thank you for that. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And awesomely, absolutely thank you for joining us on the WeAllServe podcast.
Thanks to both of you for doing this. This is a really wonderful thing that you're doing to really highlight what we all, hold dear. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you can always get on, subscribe to the WeAllServe podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Make sure you click subscribe because we have an awesome lineup of guests coming up. Additionally, you can get on YouTube, just search for WeAllServe. We've had a fantastic lineup, and you get to see Robert Lewis's reactions as we do that intro when we talk about the Army and how so many of our guests have served in the Army. There's no replacement for the facial reaction. So I highly recommend check out the YouTube pages, check out the videos. Yeah. It's worth it. It really is worth it. Well, Robert, my brother, my friend, WeAllServe. You can't wait to see you again on the next episode. And again, thank you, Bridget, for joining us.
Thank you, Bridget. And thank you, everyone.